Great, recording in progress. I love that sound. That means I pressed the right button. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Roy Talks, a conversation that we have with artists whose work is on view in the gallery. We are going to do our best today to not have an echo in our space. Manami is here live and in person in our gallery. Nat is joining us from the Netherlands, and Christy is in parts unknown. Where are you, Christy?
I'm in Mansfield, Ohio.
That's definitely a part unknown. I'm from Mansfield, Ohio, a little known fact. I want to begin today by thanking our sponsors, Ohio Arts Council, Greater Columbus Arts Council, the Columbus Foundation, Encova Insurance Company, without whose support and financial backing of these of Roy G. Biv Gallery, these events are not possible. So we want to say thank you to them particularly. So as always, this is just a conversation amongst the artists. No hard questions here, no defense of your work, just an opportunity to have a conversation. And so we might talk a little bit, let's begin with an introduction. So if you'll all introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about the work that's here in the gallery. And I will put a picture of the gallery that I took earlier. And Nat, if you wouldn't mind starting us off. You are the furthest from us, so you'll begin.
Thanks for giving me opportunity to get closer to you now. So I'm a queer artist, 34 years old, born in Poland. I currently reside in Netherlands. I used to live in Berlin, and I just keep moving because I guess this is like this migrant complex, like just trying to find my promised land. I guess that's the point also of life, to keep searching. So yeah, I'm living in the Netherlands, and I've been moving within different art mediums like collage, painting, and recently more video. I used to do a lot of installations, but I'm moving closer to filmmaking. I guess this is also dictated by the current situation of pandemic and everything being remote. I find the photography medium and the film medium to be the most accessible, and where I can put the most narration and where I do have the most control, because when it comes to installations or objects that I really love making, I used to, well, this still needs a studio, a certain circumstances, and the art space, because the artwork is not finished just by sitting in the corner of someone's room. It have to be placed in a space, and then it reach the context. But this is not really possible when the exhibitions are on hold or virtual. So currently I mostly do films and photography, which is still good. It's good to express oneself in this testing times. So yeah, I guess that's all. It's a very chaotic introduction, but this is what I do. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh.
That's me, that's not you.
Okay.
I'm trying to make sure that we don't have a lot of echo. So I'll be muting myself, and Manami will be muting herself, and we'll be exchanging that so that we don't have this echo that we're having right now. So Christy, if you wouldn't mind going next. Thank you, Nat, for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you. My name is Christy Whitmer. I'm an artist and educator. Right now I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona, and my work is sculptural, mixed media sculpture. I use ceramics often. It often begins with ceramics, and then because ceramics you're usually working on kind of a smaller scale or the scale of the kiln, then I use other materials like bricks and wood to create pedestals for the ceramic objects that then inform, add to the content of the piece. And for the exhibition that's installed at Roy G. Biv right now, I started making that right just at the beginning, right of the pandemic, right after everything sort of stopped and closed. And I was thinking, well, I'm not sure what I'll have access to, and I'm not sure what materials I'll have access to and what spaces I'll have access to. So I thought of and created this body of work, thinking about, well, I'll just have to be resourceful, use the things that I can find around me, maybe recycle some other sculptures, take things apart. And I often do that anyway. My work is modular. I like being able to move it all myself and take it apart, and it's easier for shipping too. And I feel like I like to have a lot of independence around my work. And so that's part of the reason I make modular things, but it worked out really well for this body of work to be able to take apart old sculptures and reuse some of that work. And what I'm thinking about with my work is kind of, if you see them in this space, then they're a little bit precariously balanced. And I'm thinking about this idea of the space that we're in is a bit of a temporary equilibrium, right? Like everything is holding still right now, but it's just sort of on the verge. Who knows in the next moment how things will be. And so that's kind of what I'm exploring in this body of work as that.
In that way, it reminds me of photography, right? Because you're capturing just a moment. And so, which is not necessarily what you think of with ceramics and photography having that affinity for each other, but capturing that reminds me of it.
Yes, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Manami?
Okay, thank you. I'm Manami Ishimura. I'm from Japan. I have been in United States for 5 years. I'm living in Arkansas. I'm teaching in the university. I'm a sculptor, also visual arts artist that utilize natural and artificial objects and material. And so my works more like repeat the same action, like making a cycle using 3D pen, or put the lines on the branches to create the form. And these kind of the practices brings to me kind of subconsciousness, and also kind of like talk myself and the object. So I don't start like imagine like how the final form would be, but more like talking to natural found object and using artificial material, which more kind of close to myself, because like when I start studying sculpture with the traditional technique, which is carving stone or carving wood, that destroying or collapsing the original natural, form that is already perfect. So I just wanna appreciate that, like how the nature takes the time and grow, spending a moment and moment. So I'm trying to capture or communicate to create the balance between the object or motif and me. So yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I happen to like one line coffee and their honey lattes. And one of our patrons here at Roy was here picking up some artwork that he purchased and brought me a latte. So sorry about the reach over the screen, but that's what happened there. So I appreciate you rolling with it though. Sometimes that happens. We have people who pop in the gallery while we're having these conversations. So we'll just roll with it. I'm struck by a couple of things as you were all talking a little bit in introduction about yourself and your work, and I wanted to explore a couple of themes with you. One of the things is your process for creativity. Can you talk a little bit about how you're doing that? Are you sketching first? Are you storyboarding? Do you have collaborators? Do you go to critiques? What's the process for creating and then deciding what work is going to be shown? So Christy, can you start us off with that?
Yes, absolutely. So I feel like I'm always making in my studio, and I am often making with clay or drawing.
Christy,
You can't hear
I
me.
think we cannot hear you.
You can't hear me.
So,
I can hear you.
You can hear me.
could you mute and then unmute again?
I will. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Okay.
You can hear me now. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. So so my process usually begins with clay or drawing. I'm always making. So I'm often making objects, physical objects, and then once the clay part is the clay object is finished, then I start adding other materials to create sort of a pedestal or a space for it. And with my work, I'm often thinking about the exhibition as an installation. So as all of the pieces as part of a whole. Does that make sense? All the pieces as part of a whole. And so I think of making different sculptures to be in communication with one another. And so I'm always thinking about them as a group, and how there can be shared elements between all of the pieces, so they make sense as the viewer moves through the space and observes them, so they can see the connections from one piece to another. So there's always a bit of a dialogue there. And I do this by using similar materials, like there's often a ceramic element, or the bricks as well are elements that are in common with one another. And I'll sometimes have ideas. I'll sometimes use a sketchbook to do some drawing. And what I found is really helpful too is I've been a part of an artist collective in Phoenix for the past year. And there are 11 of us, and we run a gallery together. And we also then have opportunities to put up work in progress shows, and then we discuss the work and get feedback. And so that's been a really good tool beyond graduate school to get some feedback for my work. Otherwise, sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of sending things, working a little on my own. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. I always like to picture that, how are artists creating? What are they doing? And, I've said this, we've done these talks over the pandemic, of course. It was one way for us to be able to connect, even though artists couldn't travel to be here, or we couldn't have groups here or whatever. And I'm always just amazed at your ability to create and you generally, artists, creative people, in all manner of circumstances, because I think about what you're doing, how you're working with each other, what feeds you in your creativity, and how under these extraordinary circumstances, you are finding the wherewithal to create. But I'm so grateful that you are, because I've told this story often, but when people come into the gallery, their shoulders literally leave their ears, as in, oh, I'm in a creative space. I'm in a space with beautiful things, right? Not their same four walls or whatever the circumstances brought them to the gallery. So it is, we're grateful that you're finding ways to create. So I'm always curious about what that process is like. So yeah, thank you. Manami.
Yes. So as I said, I don't like a picture like what the final, form could be, but also I kind of, I start with the found object, looking at the motif, observe, and also, analyze. So kind of I understand like a scale could be. So, and on the way, I kind of like, look back and then see like how it could be, and sometimes I draw as well. And also like drawing for me, it's like a very thin sculpture. So it's a 2D, but also I'm scratching the paper, it's also material. So to me, the drawing process is the part of like another my artwork, and it's kind of related to my sculpture work, and more like understanding like what my thinking or like thought, or like what I can draw from my mind. So my works, the works that I create by 3D pen, it's more like very I have no idea what could be in the beginning, and then I kind of draw involving the space, and then like how the dynamic kind of movement could be. So I kind of following that energies, with overall like tide kind of things. And for the acrylic boxes, pieces are more like capturing the beauty of the nature object itself. So it's more like it tried to capture the best form for each the tree branches, and like how they could be collaborate itself within the acrylic box, which is artificial material, like that is more like capturing into my like the kind of body kind of things. So yeah, that did I answer?
Yes, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, right? Like, when is your work finished that you can share it? When is your answer done that you can stop? So yes, but it's good. I mean, I'm sure we could go on and on, but that's great. I love just knowing that little bit about the process. So thank you. Nat, how about you? What's your process?
Oh, now I feel weird because it's completely different.
Oh, that's good.
And it's kind of random. It starts from a thought from the idea that is triggered by different things, like often conversations with my friends who are writers, philosophers, queer artists, performers, sex workers, and then there's just something that I feel like it carries a lot of meaning that I want to translate into image, whether it be installation or film or collage. Something that I feel like it doesn't need discussion, it opens the discussion. And sometimes my brain gets weird and I'm dreaming about something like a gray confetti. And there was a time I made this machine that was just throwing gray confetti, which was symbolically representing the broken triumph, like a triumph without triumph, like a celebration that is just robbed of the success. So this kind of things. And but with the film that is currently shown in the gallery, that was more of a like translation of the feelings of overwhelming emotions that I was carrying, and something really traumatic happened, and I kind of went the obvious way for an artist to try and utilize this and communicate something through that pain, because pain is kind of universal. Like everyone knows the feelings. And I started gathering the moving images that I have, that I felt like they are representing each section of what I'm trying to say. And it's essentially a collage, but yeah, in a documentary sphere. But yeah, my creating process is really chaotic. I often just think of some thoughts and I'm writing down. Sometimes I see something ridiculous in a public space. I take a photo with iPhone and I'm writing down, make an installation that repeats this experience. And it's more like I heavily rely on a found objects, on a found situation. it's not about stealing, but I am a fan of Duchamp, and I do, and Dada movement. I think it's something that influenced my work the most, because I think there's lots of incredible things happening in the reality we are in. And I think similar with the works of Christy and Manami, they are noticing something in reality and pull this precious magic thing. And I think this is what really connects our experience as an artist, that we just like, we have a different way of pulling and from different areas. And yeah, this is what because I do think art is all around us, but it's about putting it in the right, not box, but like in the right context, and placing together in a way that people can still interpret it in different ways. I do not like giving someone ready answer, like presenting some of my experience and being like, this is my diary, enjoy. I still would like the experience of the viewers to be autonomous and individual, and to differ. So yeah, so that's how I'm working.
That's good. We had some great conversations last night after people had seen your film, their reactions to it. It started them having conversations with each other, because the space where the film resides has a bench in it, but enough space for some people to stand around also. So they were perfect strangers together experiencing the film, reading along. It was so quiet in that space. It was just amazing. Conversations happening all around it, but in that space it was very quiet. And then afterwards, people were just having, conversations to follow up on what they had experienced. So that's really interesting too. You touched on this a little bit earlier, Christy, and Nat maybe too, but how has your access to materials and maybe to outside, conversations or situations for you, Nat, in reacting to that, but how has access to materials influenced your work? And Christy, maybe just follow up on what it is that you started to talk about, where you were maybe pulling apart some things that you already had done, and thinking long-term about, I don't know how long I'll only have access to these materials. So go ahead.
Yeah, so that was kind of the impetus for the body of work that I made, was this idea that I may only have limited access to materials. And so I used a lot of objects. I was finding objects around, around where I lived, going out for walks. And I feel similarly to what Manami said about the object itself. In my case, I was finding a lot of rocks. I live in Arizona, and there are a lot of rocks here, and the rocks themselves were actually quite beautiful objects. And I thought of them as kind of tiny landscapes or tiny mountains themselves. And so that was, then I built upon that in my work. And then I found myself kind of, when working in clay, you kind of have your piece that you make, and then there are a lot of pieces that dry out. And so I was like collecting those and saving them, and then adding water to them and reclaiming them in more diligently than I had in the past, because I wasn't sure when I would have access to them again. And the clay store was closed for a while, and I'm not digging my own clay yet, but perhaps that's somewhere I'll get to down the road. I know there is plenty in Arizona. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm picturing your house has a collection of rocks, as maybe Manami's house has a collection of sticks someplace, right? And just in case, I'm holding on to these sticks in case I need them. Is that true, Manami? Is that what your house looks like?
I have leaves.
Yeah, I had leaves. Yeah, of course. Go ahead, maybe you can pick up where Christy left off. Yeah, that's a segue.
Yeah, so I correcting the motif. Also, the motif is like motif is, it shouldn't be, modified, but I use the artificial material like plastic using 3D pen or hot glue or acrylic board, which all are artificial. That is, man-made. It's more like a suitable for me that, I can kind of, deal with it on my hands rather than like so precious material of nature. So like, how I could communicate using the tools as, a material as a tool is like usually artificial, material that more like, as a humankind that, I try to communicate, I try to appreciate. So especially the 3D, the plastic using the 3D pen or hot glue are like melt and solidified. So it's kind of going back to the different like status that is more like, not stable. That is kind of things that our body is always moving and, always change in each moment. It's different. It's very, it never still. So these material very like kind of fit on my kind of aesthetic or like how I feel about my work. So I usually choose these material.
Great. Nat, go ahead.
Yeah. So in my case, again, it's the way I access materials and choose materials. I think it's in a big part psychological. First of all, I do not have a studio. I live in a room that I share with my family, a family member that I'm taking care of. So there's no really like context of art studio, and everything is kind of like all life spheres are just kind of pushed into this one space. So I do not have like a studio or storage. And in the past, my good friend, who is a very good artist, told me something that just really sticking with me, which is turn your defeat into success, turn your limitation into creativity. So this is something when I'm trying to apply also when I do not have money, where I do not have space. I'm kind of I used to go in a town and like check the trash and collect different things that I would be building stuff from. And yeah, of course the nature too, but I do really like strange things manufactured by humans too. But yeah, therefore the video became this medium that it's so easily accessible. It's up to me. And in a time of my life where I feel really stripped of control, of creative power, this is something I have full power over. I mean, I do not have the crew, the studios, but still, this is something I can manipulate the movement of the camera. I can choose the image, and I can do it by myself, not relying on anyone else. And I think this really gave me a lot of freedom in storytelling. Like I always knew film gives that, but I was too lazy to kind of get into it. It's also hard when you're surrounded by different artworks and art materials all the time. And it's about control for me, and about the fact that I can just create it by myself. I can create this image, and I don't have to rely on anyone else. I don't have to imagine the space while I'm doing the film work, because I know that this can be discussed later. So this gives me like also a lot of peace. I used to love making installations for the concrete space, like site specific, but it's a different process, and it requires a lot of planning. So in the times where everything is just so unstable, and uncertain. It's just I'm choosing the mediums that I know I can manipulate how I want and when I want it. So it's a lot about control and freedom of doing things here and now.
I know that that's something that we've been talking about at Roy. I mean, during, I keep referring to it as during the pandemic as if it's over. It's not, but in the early days of the pandemic, maybe we should say, we made a commitment to staying open, and we just pivoted and put more things virtually, did appointments only for people to come to the gallery. But the gallery is a nice finite space that we can control. And we can control the way in which people interact with the art and with each other, requiring masks and cleaning frequently and those kinds of things. But that must be something absolutely that you all are experiencing, because you have control over your own materials and making things. But then what happens, right? So have you all experienced having shows that were scheduled that you haven't been able to share your work? And then what happens to that work? Because you're evolving as artists and as creatives, and so what you're creating is changing as you're going. And so then what happens to that work that's almost left over from that time that was not able to be shared with others? Nat.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was in enough privileged position that I've been already more focused on video and photography before pandemic, also because I do have another job. I also act in films. So doing art have to be something on the side. But yeah, I do have ideas that are still waiting for the better time. And this is also why I applied to this exhibition with film, because this was something ready and I was certain, like, no matter what, I can send it. We don't have to change the plans. So I'm always assuming that I will not finish on time if I have like an idea for installation or object. So I rather rely on the ready works that are perfectly portable. And I do like enormously respect artists like Christy and Manami, because that is next level. Next to you, I'm really, really lazy. And because it's thinking about space in this way and creating those objects, thinking about already how they're gonna correlate with each other. That's a challenge. I feel like my brain capacity doesn't exactly embrace that. So you folks are like doing tremendous job with thinking so like in a wide horizon. I guess I'm more I'm getting more into detail, and I'm just like digging inside the meanings of stuff. But when confronted with the space, this is a lot for me. Like I like to plan that. I used to like exhibiting my pieces with other artists, but it was a lot of work. It was weeks of agreements and arrangements, and honestly, I'm not jealous of artists whose works are objects and installations, because right now it must be incredibly hard. And I'm sticking to the film for now, because we don't know when it's gonna end, right?
We do not. We do not. No, that's right.
Maybe we can collaborate within film, so.
Yeah, I think, the art never be better than like communicate people in person, where, or engage with like people, but also it could be the material or tools that they share the empathy in this situation, challenging situation. And also, you can heal yourself. I'm kind of, once, the pandemic hit my life, I'm just, stay home or just be isolated in the nature, more like a practicing, more like talk myself, not just close my mind, but more trying to open your mind. Just to move by moving your hands, or thinking, just to do something, and the art could be like one of the tools that keep people activated. So I wouldn't say that it's always better to actually meet people or talk people, or share the expression in person, but like that the art could be like the the second kind of the tools that we could encourage people, not negative way, but like more positive way that I try to kind of work with it.
It's good because, I mean, your work particularly has this balance between the natural and the man-made world. Yeah, right. And so, which is what we're all trying to strive for anyway, right? That sort of balance between those two worlds. It's really interesting how they are brought together and how they both highlight each other so well. One in really a wonderful balance. One doesn't overrun the other. And I think that's certainly something that we took away from 2020, that, our life in balance, right? What's important, what's not, getting down to the very essence of things. So yeah, it's very interesting, very, very timely in that way, I feel like. And not the work of a moment. I mean, this is maybe, and I'm kind of curious about that too, and all of you and your journey on this, but, where is this body of work in what's coming next? So that'll be our next question, spoiler alert, but where's your work going next? So yeah, go ahead, Christy.
I guess I did have an exhibition that was canceled. And so I feel like exhibitions are important to me personally, because in my studio, I do a lot of just experimenting, trying things, playing. I do a lot of playing in my studio. And so when I have an exhibition, then I feel like that's a deadline and an opportunity to sort of hold some specific ideas together in that moment. And so then when I have something pulled together and an exhibition is canceled, then I feel like, months later, it's sort of, mostly I just end up taking it apart, sort of scavenging it for parts and using some of the parts for other things. Maybe using it as an opportunity to rethink the piece and go in a different direction with it, so maybe a chance to do some editing, which isn't a bad thing. Right. So yeah.
It's like recycling, art recycling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like with so many objects in the world, it's nice to be able to reuse as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something too. I mean, having that moment to stop and just contemplate a little bit and see where we're going next. I felt like 2019, even going into 2020, I was just so busy doing so many things. And I don't know if I was doing anything very well or very thoughtfully. I was just moving to the next thing to keep it going and keep moving, right? And so this is a rare gift to be able to have the time to just stop for a moment and reflect and think and then determine the next path forward. So how do you see your work moving forward, Christy? What's next for the material that you're working with, or what's the next challenge that you want to? I love how you've integrated your rocks into the pieces that you have here in the gallery. So then maybe what's the next material that you'd like to explore with your work?
I was at a residency this summer and there were artists working in paper and paper mache. I am really thinking that paper would be an awesome object to explore, an awesome material to explore next. I have this limitation of I'm limited in the size I can make of ceramic objects by the inside of my kiln. And with paper, I don't think I would be limited. I also appreciate sort of the lightness and the lightness of it. I mean, ceramics is just quite dense and heavy, and with the rocks as well too.
Right.
And I think I've also been moved by Manami's work and the lightness. I think our work complemented each other so well, in the lightness and the sort of gravity of mine, the lightness of hers. So I'm going to experiment with paper next.
Oh, excellent. I remember conversations with the jurors, you know, they convened and their scores determined whose work was invited. And then I worked with two of the jurors who wanted to figure out which artist would be paired with which artist. And that is actually a phrase that they use for this particular show, the gravity and the lightness of the work. They really enjoyed that dichotomy, especially incorporating Nat's film with all of that too. So yeah, very interesting that you would pick up on that as well, of course, but yes, maybe it's very obvious. I don't know, but that's a really wonderful moment of synergy. So that's very cool. So yeah, Nat, what's next for you? What do you think for like where your art is going? And I don't know. Yeah.
Where the money coming from? No, I'm just kidding. But kind of. I mean, this because of the film, I started focusing more on filmmaking and editing. And I recently produced a film for a company. It's more of a commercial thing, but I could use a bit of my artistic vision there too. So I'm trying to use this experience to use it in the future for the art, because I think it's like I'm gathering from different spheres of life. Where did she go? Okay.
Sorry, we have some visitors in the gallery and I wanted to let them know they were welcome to walk around and not be disturbed that we weren't talking to them. Yeah.
So for me now, I'm collecting experience in a film production to actually use it in the art projects. There are a few art projects that rely on the film medium to some degree, but I also have this idea that it incorporates film, but also objects and photography, that it can exist like as an exhibition in different gallery spaces, but also as an autonomous film. And I think the pandemic really informed my experience as an artist, preparing myself like, oh, I will do the art that it can be portable, but it also can be like in a museum, because I think we can't really take this reality for granted. And I feel like there's this temptation of, as an artist, like seeing the pandemic is coming down, that, oh, now I will send submissions and I will exhibit and galleries are open again. The art life will start again. And I have this in the back of my head that maybe let's prepare it for different circumstances, because it's just, there's so much uncertainty. And I think it's also interesting to incorporate it in art, the theme of pandemic, how this uncertainty influenced the art. I also think it's kind of meta, but I think it's also quite interesting. And so yeah, I'm kind of my future projects kind of rely on grants, and I'm sending so far. It's been a bit silent, but I feel like at least in my experience as an artist, it always comes from unexpected sources. And this was the case also with submission for this exhibition. I had the film ready. There was a deadline the same day, and I was like, okay, I will send it. It doesn't hurt. I never exhibited anything in US. So I thought, this, who knows, nothing bad can happen, right? And honestly, when I received the answer, I didn't fully trust it. I thought like, oh, maybe this is some pre-elimination. Maybe it's just like a first sort, or maybe this is like enormous exhibition. So now seeing it on a tour and how it that I'm put together with such amazing artists, I'm feeling so moved and surprised, because again, this wasn't expected, and I feel like this is the good attitude to keep, to not set myself for this expectations of big exhibitions and great funds, and just keep working and being honest and being kind to oneself as an artist, letting oneself speak and create, and see how people react, but just don't assume my value based on the funds. Just keep working and hoping for some chance. I guess this is the only way, at least for me, because yeah, as I said, there's just so much uncertainty, and it's really hard to plan anything, and it's like nobody's fault. I mean, the government's, but but that's everyone knows.
Another interview. Yeah. No, I think that's true. There is some truth to that. You just need to do the next right thing for you. And if that means create, then keep creating. And the more you create and put that out into the universe, the more the universe will respond. As you're talking, I'm going to send you a couple of links for upcoming submission opportunities. So yeah, you never know. Conversations. Yes, very good. Okay, Manami, you're next.
Yeah, so these works that I exhibiting in this gallery, I studied from the college students in Japan. So it's more like, how I inspired from the Japanese culture in education. But, when I came to the United States, like I'm so impressed, like a diversity of race, culture here. And I like to kind of express this, like to celebrate the world here. And also, I work with the nature, natural objects, but also, humankind, like in the history, we always, collaborate with the nature and create the culture, and I should appreciate that. Sorry. So I went to Native Americans. I homestayed there. It was amazing experience, that how they live in the nature with the minimum amount of the material that they can gain from there. And also I went to artist residency in Japan to kind of try to gain more traditional culture there, not only technique, but like the history behind the work, thought, philosophy. So and then every culture, especially Japanese, Native American, Aztec culture, has like a method that storytelling, like how they celebrate the nature, and then how they kind of establish funding on the richness of the nature. So it's great to like kind of talk in that way, more like a storytelling, not just showing the object. It's kind of I'm still brainstorming, but like that would be the next my challenge when I have to practice.
That's great. Well, I know Roy is, a part of that journey of yours. And so I'm kind of curious about, I'm glad that you found Roy. What is next for you in exploring other spaces to share your work? So are there some galleries or something that your exhibition at Roy has helped you to prepare for the next step on your journey?
I actually have an exhibition in Cincinnati next month. In the museum, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the museum. But it's related to the University of Cincinnati. It's a part of the conference, Mid-South Sculpture Alliance Conference, that I will have an artist talk as well in the conference. And also I'm going to Iceland for artists other residency Yeah, that is so exciting. I
That's
love
exciting.
to, yeah, experiencing their culture as well.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to see the work that comes from that influence. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Christy, how about you? What's going on? What are you working toward and yeah.
I've got a show upcoming in Phoenix, a solo show in Phoenix coming up in November. And I still have to make most of the work for that. So I'll be busy this fall. And yeah, and this exhibition at Roy has given me a lot of ideas on how to move forward then with that exhibition.
That's good. Yeah. How about for you? Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know yet. I'm in a phase of sending the proposals for different fundings and different project developments, and I develop on my own, but there are no scheduled exhibitions yet. I'm also like working as an actress, so there's more of this coming for me, and I'm privileged enough that I get to work in like an art film as well. So I always, when I go to the film set, which is for me in the next month, I'm going to south of France, where I'm going to perform in a film, like experimental conceptual film, with money, for money. So that's that's unusual. And I always take like a camera with me, my own camera, and I do things on the side, kind of using the circumstances. So this is exciting for me, almost like as I would be doing my own project, because I know this creates circumstances for me to get inspiration and get something going. I already been to that place. It's like a 17th century villa, and it has a lot of interesting energy that I'm just willing to explore. So it's not an exhibition, but it's something that I'm really looking forward as an artist to, as a source of exploration and inspiration for the future. But yeah, I'm waiting for the proposition. So if you hear of anything, yeah. But I'm really happy for the other artists, for Christy and Manami, that you have these amazing things coming. This is really good, and I'm happy that because you're working so hard, you get to have that going. It's also, I know many artists who are disappointed and sad that they don't have anything coming in the next months, but they are just not really keeping track with stuff. So I think it requires a lot of attention and discipline to have that things that you guys have planned. So it's really cool, and good luck.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Well, we are near the end of our time. We try and keep these at about an hour for Nat. That's like, is it 8:30 there now, right? And at night. So we appreciate your taking the time today to have the conversation. I don't want to leave without giving you all an opportunity to share something else or ask each other a question or a question for me, or I don't want to leave anything undone. So do you have any last minute comments or something you want to ask? Or
I have a question for Matt that, you kind of exposure your situation or experience. Is your work kind of healing yourself as well? I wonder, like, it could be part of like beneficial for you, or like more like as artists, like you feel that like this is like, I have to like kind of, show, or like more like, I just wonder like what art practice, for your life or for you yourself.
Yeah, part of it is the need of getting stuff out of my system, but I also don't believe that just because something is my experience is already art. Or I always do this process of filtration, and I'm thinking of the experience of like the fear of illness. I was wondering what in this could be interesting for everyone. What in this, where is the potential that I want it to be interesting beyond the fact it's my story. I wanted to see and take out the things that I think could be valuable for others, that could be interesting for others for different reasons. Because, you know, making art about the terminal disease, this is very specific. And there are many people who do not have interest just in that, and that's fine. I think the exercise of art is to make it widely accessible and to make it also multi-meaning. It can affect many different people, not necessarily immersed in my reality. So therefore there are many factors and sections in this film, because when it comes to fear and death, there are different things coming together. So I tried my best to make it to go beyond telling my intimate story, so everyone can somehow relate to some of the stuff. So it's the need of telling the story, but also the need to communicate with others through the story, instead of crying on someone's shoulder and talking on a phone. I wanted to tell the story so someone can look at me and look at the film, and we can have this just wordless communication, and that I can feel understood, that I can feel like I'm not alone. I feel like it's about the need of sharing, to know you're not alone in the world. I guess that's what I can, that's the closest, because I do not feel this narcissistic need of sharing just anything. It's kind of tempting sometimes. I think every artist can feel like, oh no, I need to show them. No, but I still feel like I want the art to be worth showing. I want the viewers to feel like, okay, this was important, or I didn't waste my time. Because there is a need of storytelling, but I feel like as our task as an artist is still selecting and showing the story in a way that will get to everyone in some ways. So yeah, it's a need of communication, a need of connecting with people. I have a question to you, Manami, because your works are there's so many associations coming to my mind. I felt first sci-fi films, nature, the human organism, like organs, but that's just my associations. And I was wondering, what are your inspirations and some of the things you are thinking of when designing your projects and when making your projects?
Yeah, so I started with this cartoon. This is like old my kind of practice, from my college, time. So, and then if you look at the stick, it's not just a straight. It's always, because by the time get the rain, whatnot, shade on this side, so like the branches move this way or other way, it depends on the situation. Okay, this branch comes here, so I'm gonna go there. So it's like each part of the tree's body communicate and then create this form, and that is more like I'm just kind of try to understand these kind of the form that capturing the time. And these works are more like, I'm draw this time from the dead body of the tree branch. And then I kind of studied it's also, through the repetitive movement, it's going to kind of my mind that, more corroborating the form of the tree and my mind, like how I like to move, that kind of, how to say, the corroboration that create the form. But then I feel that, how about just myself, like how I, like it's more like inspired by how I breathe, like how I live, like just, more like a meditation. I actually went to Thailand and living in a temple with the monks for 2 months, just, try to understanding their culture, also like their practice, and I more, it's a different practice, but also same kind of way to understanding yourself and through creating the form. So it's, I feel that, okay, I'm still nature, So I feel that, yeah, I understand it never be like geometric. It's always, organ or like something like from nature.
Yes.
But that is we are. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
I have the same question to Christy. I was thinking about your work, and it made me think of like monuments and totems. This is maybe a bit too simplifying, but some kind of like monuments and little altars of something. But I don't know. I was wondering what is like. What inspires your practice, and why the stone? Is there like a meaning behind this, the idea of stone, or some particular memory that you want to recall, and if it has anything to do with totems or if it's something else? Yeah, I'm curious, like what is inspiring you?
Thank you for that question. I think the source of my work actually is really the interaction between me and the clay, and it starts by just simply touching it. I love it that the clay can record the imprint of your fingers and your interaction, my interaction with it. And so that's, I think, where most of my work starts, is this interaction between me and the clay. And I'm like, oh, and it does this cool thing, and then this is happening, and then I want to share that with the viewers and have them see like this kind of interesting part of the clay and what that does, and how it kind of looks like a little landscape, or how it reminds me of some other piece of nature, and so then I feel like most of my sculptures, I'm then creating maybe totems or really monuments, or really these structures that then presents these objects to the viewer, like I'm building things up and wanting them to look at this and notice the way that the texture of the glazed bricks that I make is like a little bit shiny, but a little bit undulating, kind of like, but different from the texture of the plaster that I cast, which also has like a little bit of variation from where I took it out of the foam that I cast it in. And how then the styrofoam, or polystyrene pieces are kind of a white, but a different whiteness from the porcelain that is like sort of a lovely, a lovely material. And also I think about materials and how we value materials. So ceramic is maybe valued higher than we value polystyrene or styrofoam, but so I'd like to put them in the same sculpture together. So to kind of change things around and shift our thinking about about materials and really play a little bit. And also I'm interested a lot in humor. I love humor in art. And so I have this piece where I've glued together a bunch of rocks. And really like the epoxy that I use takes a long time to dry, like 8 hours or something. So I glue like one rock and I stand back and look at it and then another rock. So the process is a little bit sort of meditative. But then it's like a little bit absurd that this gluing of rocks together, which came out partially of kind of feeling like I was a little limited in materials, but it's like a little bit silly. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Actually, I was looking at your works and thinking of that. How interesting is that you play with power dynamic, and it almost represents society, you know, with like how you mix the materials and how you shift the weight of the noble material and the cheap material, how this becomes relative in your work. And also this one piece with like the stones and the big block of the big white object, like I really like how it makes me anxious. Like I feel like, oh no, it will fall. I guess that's what she wanted me to feel. Like it's amazing how such a simple combination, well, it is not simple, but not over thought, it's making me feel different things, and it's playing with the gravity and with the weight. I really like how you make it relative, like it just, you create your own world where there are different rules applying, and I like this element of not assuming things, not predicting things. It's yeah, and the anxiety. I feel like it's important that art gives an impact, good or bad, but some impact. So I really like it, and it's so aesthetically so nice. Like I would, if I had a home, I would like with the space to put sculptures, this would look so nice. Like I feel like it can fit into so many spaces as an art to have like an interior. It's just the colors are so it's really nice. And it's funny, like you said. When I saw this the pieces of clay with stones, I was like, oh, that's very meta. That's like a lovely joke, but it's like in this very pretty form, and still it's like a chuckle. It's like, it's not to laugh like in a vulgar manner. It's like it's very subtle. It's very nice. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. And I am interested in people's body awareness increasing as they move around the work, definitely. And I have a question for you, Nat, actually. I'm thinking about, I've been thinking about making video, I guess, for a little while, maybe as a way to record my interaction with the clay, and how that could be an interesting companion. And you were talking about installation requiring a lot of planning. And it seems to me that your videos, your film work also requires a lot of planning. What's your process like for that?
Actually, when it comes to filming the scenes, that was not, a lot of stuff was not planned, and I used wherever I go, I shoot some things that I find interesting, artistically, visually, and sometimes I'm just with the smartphone, so I'm putting it on 4K or HD, and I'm filming just something that is happening, and I'm adding it to my own video stock. Like I'm just creating, like, you know, when you collect materials found in the nature and later you may use it or not. And so I already had some footage, and then I just filmed a couple of scenes that I thought will fit into film. But I first made like editing, and I could see what is missing. So based on that, I could plan to film the missing stuff. And I have to say that this is actually a fun process of kind of putting the collage together. But the hardest part, so this is strictly related to making videos, is editing. This is just so time consuming and hurting the back. Like, the more advanced I'm becoming as a filmmaker, the worse is my posture. So this is the price, I guess, we have to pay. Yeah, if you look like at the famous filmmakers,
Yes,
they
they're
have
all,
terrible
yes.
back.
Yes. I didn't think about that, the physical toil that, because, you know, I know some ceramicists who ended up creating slings for themselves to help suspend their bodies over their wheels, because so many years of being hunched over in repetitive motion and movement has done that to them. And so they have a sling system almost. So,
Wow.
yeah, you know, art, yes, creating does take its toll for sure.
Yeah. This is what I miss with like painting and making I used to study sculpture, and the fact that you can change, you can move around the object. It's much. I feel like it's almost healthier. But I definitely recommend you, well, everyone to do film, because it can be like a additional thing that will be helpful with the process. Or yeah, in the time where everything gets closed again, then you may have this, maybe you can film yourself making the artwork, and this can become an autonomous artwork. I just feel like the video recording gives us just some backup options, almost a backup, and just expanding the horizons. It's not always my favorite. As I said, I really like creating and not just editing for like few days in a row. but yeah, I feel like it's also good to have this possibility, because then we can't feel like, oh, I wish but I can't. So it's just good to have this, and I do recommend you to start even filming from the phone. If you have one of the newer smartphone, this is perfect to start with. Like I really feel like I'm into the cheap equipment, and there's really not, like, you don't need expensive stuff to start. So I'm curious how you're gonna go with this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really good to hear. I appreciate the way you describe putting it together like a collage. And I feel like as an artist, I want to keep learning and expanding my practice rather than just making the same.
Right. Well, maybe you can create some films that you will share when you take over Roy's Instagram. So yes,
That is a start.
That's right, exactly.
Cool.
Well, good. Well, thank you all so much. That's just a wonderful discussion. Let's leave it there in the interest of time. But I do so appreciate your willingness to have a conversation with each other. And I just love the dynamics of your personalities and your work in the gallery. I'm looking forward to spending some more time with your work this month. We will talk a little bit about Instagram and takeover. So to our viewers, look for that. And as soon as this recording is ready, then I'll post it on our YouTube channel so people can watch that. And then I look forward to, more discussions with you all. So thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.